It was super suspenseful. The Last House Guest, The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, it is so nice to meet you. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the books that I read in March and April. If you are new here, let me back up. I did a video like this in March that was books that I read in January and February, and I plan on doing more of these videos throughout the year to tell you guys about the books that I've read. My goal is to read 100 books by the end of the year, and so far I am on book 44 and it's currently May, the beginning of May, so I am pretty ahead. That way if I fall behind, I will still be ahead. So with that being said, I have a good list of books that I've read, so I wanted to share them with you guys. But if you are new to my channel, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel down below. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like book videos, and follow me over on Instagram because I do have a story highlight on my profile where I regularly upload pictures and ratings of books that I have read if you want to keep up with it in real time instead of waiting for the big chunk at this time. So with that being said, a few things. I get these books. I read a vast majority of my books on my Kindle. So I read them through the library. My local library has an ebook like library where you can download books that way, and a lot of them are available on Kindle, so I read them that way, or I download them from Prime Reading or Kindle Unlimited. Kindle Unlimited is $9.99 a month. Prime Reading is included in your Prime membership if you have an Amazon Prime account. And I also have thrifted a few books here and there recently, or purchased some for pretty cheap. I do prefer, if I can't find it anywhere else and I desperately want to read it, I will try to buy it. Usually the Kindle version is cheaper than the physical copy of the book, but sometimes you can get the physical copy for cheaper from like a used bookseller. Just depends. So there are a lot of options for how you can get books without spending a ton of money. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So let's see. I made a spreadsheet on Google Sheets with all of the books that I've read so that I can keep up with them a little bit better. But my spreadsheet has my rating and then like a little description for me to give you while I'm making these videos, because otherwise these videos would be so long. Like I've already been filming for 3.5 minutes and I haven't even started talking about the books yet. So let's see. For March, the first book I read in March was The Wife Lie by Anya Mora, and I would say I give it a 4 out of 5. It was kind of slow at first. Honestly, it was kind of forgetful for me. I didn't really, I don't know, it didn't really stand out to me, but I finished it, you know? So it's where the husband goes missing and the first wife of this husband shows up. That's all I can give you for now, so you'll have to read it. But I do give it a 4 out of 5 because I don't think it was a bad book. I remember thinking like this was really good while I was reading it. It's also storming outside, which is why I'm sitting super close to the window right now. That was really loud. Good, love that for me. Why I'm wearing a sweatshirt, because it's cozy in here right now. The next one is The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins, and I gave this book a 5 out of 5. I'd say this book was very smartly designed. Basically, a woman starts dating a widowed man, and then she learns the truth about what happened to his wife. And I thought it was very interesting. I thought it flowed really well. It was super suspenseful. Like I said, I'm giving a very, very, very brief description of these books just because I don't want this video to be 400 years long. Next is The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. I gave this a 5 out of 5, and a woman uncovers the story of her friend's death a year after she died. I'd say it was pretty suspenseful. Next is The Cousins by Karen M. McManus, and I give it a 5 out of 5. It was super cute. If you've ever read anything by her before, I would say this is a young adult meets thriller novel, which is like my favorite kind of book. It is The Cousins. The cousins are invited to this island to work at a resort with their grandmother, their strange grandmother who they've never met before, and they uncover family secrets and why they've never met her before. The Other Mrs. by Mary Kubica, I think is how you pronounce it. I give that a 5 out of 5. It is a psychological thriller. It's a little confusing at first, but it really picks up towards the end, like once you kind of get what's going on. It's told from the perspective of 3 different people, and I don't know why. Let me just back up. I said I was gonna give you a very brief description, but this one I kind of feel like I need to elaborate a little bit. Basically, I knew it was a psychological thriller. Psychological thrillers kind of follow the same recipe, if you will, because I cannot think of another word to describe it. They follow the same basic recipe, if that makes sense. So I feel like I should have known that something like what happened at the end was coming, but it was unpredictable. Like I should have known, but at the same time I was really shocked by the ending. So I feel like that's what made it a really good psychological thriller. Next is Confess by Colleen Hoover. I give this a 5 out of 5. If you've ever read anything by Colleen Hoover, she is so good. Like I don't understand. She's so good. She's also really funny. I follow her on TikTok. But she This book is so good. I read the whole thing in one sitting. Basically, this 21-year-old, she needs a job. She runs into this dude who hires her. They have a super strong connection, and then she keeps running into him. Something happens. That's really all I can tell you without giving the book away, but I read it all in one sitting, so that's how you know it's a good book. Next is The Kept Woman by Karin Slaughter, and I actively seek out her books. I go to Kindle and I look at the available books, and if they're not available, I'll put them on hold, but I will read anything by Karin Slaughter. I don't know why. I really love her books. I love her writing. Her books are usually really long, so they take a lot longer for me to read than other books, but this one is about this guy who, he is a detective. He gets called to a scene where an ex-cop has been murdered, and then there's like blood all over the place that doesn't belong to the guy that was murdered, but it belongs to his wife who has been missing. So it's really interesting. Like I said, it's a really long book, but 5 out of 5 for me. Next is The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. I know a lot of people have been reading this recently because it is soon to be on Netflix, like I think like really soon, sometime this month I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I give this a 5 out of 5. I thought it was kind of slow at first. It's from the perspective of a woman who's an agoraphobe. She's scared of open spaces, so the opposite of claustrophobic. She's scared of open spaces. She doesn't leave her house. You learn why in the book, and then she sees something happen to one of her neighbors because she's the woman in the window. She's looking out her window all the time because she doesn't go outside. I feel like it really picked up, and it was really, really suspenseful towards the end. Those are all of the books from March, so now we move on to April. I read a lot more in April. So in April, I read The Girl from Widow Hills by Megan Miranda, and I give it a 4 out of 5. I'd say it was kind of slow. It had some twists. There was a girl who's famous from a tragedy in her past, and that's kind of the gist of it, and she tries to uncover like the truth behind this tragedy that happened to her. Next is Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane, and I give this a 5 out of 5. So this woman kills her husband and then he goes missing. She's really confused, and it's in the description of the book also. When you look up the synopsis, it says she can't find he's missing, but she was the last person to see his body, so she has no idea what's going on. So I thought it was super suspenseful for that reason. Next is quite a change of pace for me. It was The Viscount Who Loved Me, which is the second Bridgerton book and is what season 2 of the Bridgerton series on Netflix is going to be. I give it a 5 out of 5. It's by Julia Quinn, and I thought it was super cute. It's a classic enemies turned lovers kind of story, but obsessed. Next is Drown Her Sorrows by Melinda Lee. I give this a 4 out of 5. It was part of a series. There was an apparent suicide that happened, but this sheriff and her detective boyfriend are trying to find out what really happened because they don't believe that she really killed herself, because the autopsy kind of makes it seem like she died from something else. So I thought it was pretty good, but it's part of a series. Next is The Watcher Girl by Minka Kent, and Minka Kent is another one of those authors, kind of like Karin Slaughter or Colleen Hoover, that I will read pretty much anything they write. Minka Kent typically writes psychological thrillers, so she's more like on the psychological side. Karin Slaughter is more like actual detective work, and then Colleen is just good at everything. But Minka Kent, I'd say this gives a 5 out of 5. This kind of ties into another book that she wrote, and I like recognized the characters, but I cannot for the life of me remember what book is kind of related to. Like, it's a character that's a child in one book that like grows up, and the story is of her as a grown-up. Basically, she's like stalking her ex-boyfriend on social media, and she finds out he lives in her hometown and is married a lookalike, named their daughter the same thing that she's named, so she's kind of like uncovering all that. So like I said, 5 out of 5. Next is The Girl Beneath the Sea by Andrew Mayne, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 because I finished it. I didn't love it. It was a little bit confusing. It was very like, there was a lot of nautical language in it. It's this girl who's a diver for a police department, or for several police departments, where she goes to uncover artifacts and evidence from like marshes and in the ocean for the police departments. And so the lingo, I didn't really understand it that much, so it was a little confusing to me. So that part I didn't love. It was a nice mystery story, but I almost didn't finish it until I realized that I was more than halfway through. So next is How to Marry a Marquise by Julia Quinn, and basically 5 out of 5 for me, honestly. Basically, it's in the Bridgerton world, so if you've seen Bridgerton, you learn about Lady Danbury in the first season of Bridgerton, and she's mentioned a lot in this book. She is one of the main characters is actually her nephew, so it is tied to the Bridgerton world, but it's just different characters. This one is a classic romance story with a conflict, and I thought it was pretty cute. Next is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, and I give this one a 5 out of 5. I know a ton of people have read this book and think it's so good, and honestly, I do too. It was a super cute book. I honestly was so shocked by the ending. I think it's young adult because the characters were teenagers, but I was so shocked by the ending. I literally like put the book down and I was like, I'm mad because I didn't want it to end this way. So there's that. Next is Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter, coming to Netflix soon. How many times can I mention Karen Slaughter? I told you guys I love her books. Basically, it is this mom who has a bunch of secrets and her daughter kind of discovers them after this shooting that they're involved in. 5 out of 5 for me. I'm getting a phone call. Hold on. Hello. Next is Sex and Vanity by Kevin Kwan. I have one word for you and it's funny. I do not usually read funny books, but Kevin Kwan is so funny. If you have never read the Crazy Rich Asian series, I highly recommend it. And this is by the same author. It kind of takes place within the same world, so like there are references to characters from Crazy Rich Asians. But basically this girl goes to a wedding of her friend in Italy, and she goes to this wedding, she meets this guy, and then she like never sees him again. And then the second part of the book is her life back home like 5 years later. It's so good. I don't know what it's called, but whenever you're reading a book and there is a thing at the end of a sentence, and then at the end of the chapter you go and like you find the little number or whatever and it explains the reference. That's what he does, but he puts his own commentary in it and it's so funny. Like I seriously think it's hilarious. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 5, honestly. I'm giving this 200%. Next is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, and this is another that I give a 5 out of 5. If you've never read any of her books before, I have read Sharp Object, and then I also have Gone Girl on my list. I know Gone Girl is the most popular of hers, but Sharp Objects is on HBO Max, I think. And then I don't know when Dark Places is coming out, but I think it's coming out sometime this year. Basically, this girl, tragedy, always a tragedy. Her family's killed, and she kind of uncovers that because she's run out of money, so she has to try to find a way to make money. So she's basically exploiting her past to make money. It's really good. I think it's really good. And the last one I read in those 2 months is Don't Let Go by Harlan Coben, and I give this one a 5 out of 5 as well. This guy is trying to uncover the truth of his twin brother's death. I think it's pretty good. I think it moved along really well. It told the story really well, and it had a very shocking ending. So those are all the books that I read throughout March and April of 2021. If you guys like videos, please let me know, because I love making them. I love reading, and I love putting things that I love into things that I do here. It's just like putting two things that I love together, YouTube and reading, into one thing. So it's great. I love it. I'm currently reading The Last Story of Mina Lee by Nancy Juyeon Kim. I found a way to make the Kindle cover the book that I'm currently reading, which I think is really cool. So yeah, that's what I have now, but my Kindle, it's great. We love reading. So if you haven't read a book this year, try one of the ones I just read. I'd recommend like We Were Liars or an easier read. I'd pick an easier read. So yeah, that's all I have for today's video. I kind of rambled a little bit, but I read like 21 books, so I needed to tell you about all of them. So that is all I have for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.